PowerPoint as we have. He's been with the team for, what, 9 years with PowerPoint? 13 years, sorry, yeah. I forgot a few there. A long time. And both in development and in program management. He's currently the group program manager of the business unit that brings us PowerPoint and graphics and other exciting things. So we're going to look forward to hearing what he has to say about Office 12 and what's coming. So thank you, Brandon.
Howdy, thanks for coming. As Dean mentioned, I'm the group program manager. We're now called the Presentation and Graphics Services team in Office. And I'll apologize ahead of time. I put the presentation together a little hastily. We're right in the middle of a big planning crunch mode for Office 12. It's an exciting time. We have a lot of interesting things we're pursuing, a lot of big challenges. A little early to know what's going to make the cut and what's not. I have a lot of slides here that I got mostly from my team from a prior program review we did. Some of the slides are from presentations I've done and a couple I put together for this. So feel free to interrupt at any time with any questions you have, and we'll just go from there. So a bit about our team. We used to be the graphics product unit and the graphics business unit for a long time, so if you've heard those terms, that's us. We do PowerPoint, which you've heard of, Office Art, which is shared drawing. It's in Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Publisher, and Front Page. We also do a layer of graphics APIs in Office that other teams use. We build VGX for the IE team, so it's a component that renders vector graphics in Internet Explorer. We did all the tablet support in Office for Office 2003, and we also did meetings, workspaces, and picture libraries as well in SharePoint, which just released. So we've got a bunch of different things we work on. We're spread a little thin. We're also in California. Yeah.
What is the relationship with video?
Okay, good question. So recently in this release, we've been organized under the same general manager with the Visio team. We're still pretty much two separate teams. However, the Visio team is working on a new product, which they're calling IGX. I believe Matt came and talked to you about that. And IGX will be built on top of Office Art 2.0. I'm going to talk a lot about Office Art 2.0. It's a bit broader of an architecture than we had before. So all of PowerPoint's going to be built on it, as well as all of this new IGX product. So we have a little bit of shared work going on between the two teams. These types of reorgs, by the way, go on all the time. So last release, we were orged together with Outlook, and the release, go figure, and the release before with Word, which made a little more sense. So that, it's just kind of shuffling around priorities of the release. It happens in Office every release. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about our team in California. We've always had a real interest in innovation. I think architectural innovation especially. So some things we've done in the past. Early on, we pushed GDI past its limits, and so we had to implement our own metafile rendering. They didn't use to scale when we first built PowerPoint. We did a lot of recoloring in metafiles. We actually, some research code, we took a halftone pen code in PowerPoint 95. We brought the halftone palette to Office 95 and did a lot of innovation in palettes at the time. We've done a lot over time to make things print, although we have a lot more to do there. Back in the PowerPoint 4 and 95 days, we did a big re-architecture of PowerPoint in C++, all object-oriented. It was a very researchy project, actually. Did a lot of code innovations, put exception handling in, built it in from ground up, and some of these innovations have made their way into the larger Office code base over time. Very strict doc-to-use separation, which was a wonderful thing while it lasted, but it's not there anymore. We did shared drawing in 97, so that was a big innovation for Office. In HTML, we did this. If you've ever saved PowerPoint HTML as HTML, it's pretty neat. It scales to fit the window. I haven't seen any other products that pulled that off. We also implemented VML, vector markup language, and the rendering component for IE, so you can have vector HTML that's rendered in Internet Explorer. We integrated GDI Plus in Office XP, which I don't know whether it was an innovation or a chore, but it was a lot of work anyway. And we did the ink support in 2003, obviously with a lot of help from the ink and tablet team in WISP, but we had some work to do in Office as well. So we love hard problems in our team. We take them on, and we're looking at a lot of them in this release. Some things I just wanted to mention about the office development process. Maybe you know this, maybe you don't, but it impacts our ability to work with research. We have historically tight ship schedules. We've been shipping every 2 years for a long time now. About a year of that is debugging. That leaves only a year to do all the planning and all the coding, and there's milestones in there as well. So we get about 24 weeks of coding in a release, which really isn't that much. We also need to own all our code. This didn't used to be true. We got code pieces from other groups, from outside companies, from other groups within the company. But now with the requirements that we have around security, around supporting the code for our customers for a long period of time, and because of all the tools that we use to build the product, we have to have all the source code. We have to own it. And so we can't just accept DLLs or other code pieces from other teams. And that includes other teams within Microsoft. So this makes it very hard for us to get code from outside, and that includes from research. It means we'll have to talk about partnerships if we do want to include research code, about how we get that code and how we get it in a state that we can ship it to customers. All right, so enough of that. So key themes for Office 12, and this is just for my team. There's a lot of key themes for Office 12. I'm just talking about Office Art and PowerPoint. 21st Century Graphics is actually an Office-wide theme, and we have a lot to do with that theme. Office Art is providing the graphics infrastructure. Our graphics are old school. We really need to do a lot to update them, and we need to do a lot to the architecture so that we can actually provide the kinds of features to our customers that we want to. And I have a bunch of slides on this, so I'll go into that more. Ink, we have just kind of scratched the surface about putting ink into Office documents, and there's some very, very hard problems there that we're looking at. And then on the PowerPoint side, 21st century output, for sure, it extends beyond just what Office Art can provide to PowerPoint, but also animations and multimedia, which are specific to PowerPoint, and styling and templates and a bunch of other things I'll talk about. We're doing a lot of work in this release on pitch books. These are dense, what we see as dense printed documents. A lot of financial institutions, the Department of Defense, are using PowerPoint extensively for printed documentation, and so we're going to add a bunch of support there. And actually that includes a lot of scenarios around presentation assembly and reusing graphics. There's also presenting improvements we have on the plate, some digital meetings work that we started in the last release, and because of PowerPoint we're going to continue in this release. And then I'll have some discussion around XML and using it as a new file format. Yes?
The kind of Office plan, like 13 or 14, intersect with the Longhorn API and Avalon and all that stuff?
Oh, good question. So Office 12 is currently on the Longhorn wave. We call it. Our plan is to ship together with or slightly after Longhorn. We are targeting Longhorn only. Office 12 will only run on Longhorn. It won't run on Windows XP. We're going to use Longhorn technologies every chance we get, so we're very much on board with that. Obviously a big challenge because we're embracing codependencies with the Longhorn team, and it's a new world for us. So a little bit on graphics. So I went back and I looked at what kinds of content people could create in Word and PowerPoint in like 1994, Office 4 timeframe, and these are the kinds of things that we would see all the time. They're very easy to create with those tools, and so I went and looked at what is easy to create with modern versions of Office, and it pretty much looks like that. And so we haven't really improved the ability of Office to create rich-looking documents. And meanwhile, all around us, graphics are becoming very advanced. You see them on the web, on TV, and print everywhere. Photoshop shows up in all kinds of places. And in PowerPoint, for example, most good presentations we see have a lot of Photoshop work that's gone into them. So our goal is to empower users to easily create documents that look like they were created by a graphics professional. And so it's more than just having the tools. We have to make it easy for people to use them as well without actually being a graphics professional themselves. So hopefully instead of creating this type of document, people will be easily able to create these types of documents. So some scenarios that we're going to try to implement across Office to solve this. PowerPoint's applied design concept is actually a pretty good one, and Excel and Word are very interested in using it. To take what you create just by typing and making a simple chart and converting that into a truly professional-looking document. We want to have, I'll talk a little bit about this more, but a common template experience and a common template model that help drive good-looking documents through the core applications. There's this concept that's being called folio people are looking at, and that is the idea that we could define, probably in XML, a bunch of graphic styles and information that any of the applications can use to create a consistent-looking and good-looking document. We want to have all the basic graphic effects required to create these documents. That's Office Art's job, but I actually have text here because it's very important for text as well as shapes and diagrams, charts. And then the key thing is we want the tools that we provide to be more than just dialogues full of property controls, but rich styles that make it so as users interact with the tools, they create good-looking documents. So some key efforts underway. Office Art 2.0, I'm going to talk a lot about this, so I won't go into it right now. Visio and Excel. The Visio guys came and talked to you. IGX team is looking at building very compelling diagrams, making that easy, both compelling in structure as well as in graphic output. The Excel team, I just spoke with them today, are very committed to a new rich charting implementation across Office. It'll work both in Excel as well as for all of the applications to really increase the level of functionality as well as graphic appeal of the charts. Publisher is a team really driving this folio effort, and all of the applications are looking at incorporating folio or the elements of it, and also looking at where styles are used and should be used in the applications. So table styles, chart styles, color models, those types of things. Yeah. There's a bunch of app-specific improvements that aren't even necessarily around graphics. Word wants to improve some typography things that they have shortcomings in. They want to make Word a lot better for long documents. It falls apart for long documents. PowerPoint has animation and multimedia improvements. Excel wants to do a lot with styling of the whole spreadsheet as well as better WYSIWYG printing. So each team has their own areas that they want to innovate as well. So I talked about applied design. One thing I didn't mention is color schemes and color models. This is actually an area where we have interesting ideas that we'd like to have happen, but we don't know how to make them happen. So help around color models and color schemes is a place that we could use some research. So just a quick screenshot. This is actually IGX here with a diagram, and the idea is that very easily you can apply different styles. Likewise, in Excel, very easily apply different color schemes, and they work much more deeply and richly than color schemes would today. I mean, Excel kind of has a color scheme model today, but it doesn't know intent. We have a lot of discussion around emphasis and emphasis colors and how, whether people could emphasize parts of their documents rather than just make them green. And that way they would respond correctly when put into another document or when another template or color scheme was applied. Folio. The folio effort is, like I said, primarily driven by the publisher team, although the Office Art team needs to provide core infrastructure for this really to work. So a key part about folio is it's more around the creation process for templates than the application process. Today, to create a design template in PowerPoint is actually very complicated, and we hire contractors to create ours. It's very hard to make one that will work well in the real world. So we want to make that easy for any individual to go and create a template that then they could use in Word, PowerPoint, and Excel documents. The reason it's driven by the pub team is for small businesses. It's very hard for a small business to create branding around their business. Large corporations like Microsoft can afford to go hire someone. We just talked to this lady, and she was hired to build a PowerPoint template for Hewlett & Packard. It was rolled out to 65,000 users at Hewlett & Packard, and she spent a long time working on this template. Small businesses can't afford that. So the idea here is that the folio is both the definition of the styles, but it's also a user interface that people can interface with and create the style or template. So the idea is that you could go into a folio and you could feed it your logo, company colors, preferences around shape styles. We're not font information, not exactly sure what. And then that would get combined with information from each application around content and structure, and the end result would be great looking results, but also some variability too. Here it's volume up, volume down, but it wouldn't just be a deterministic result. Otherwise, everybody's output through this tool would start to look fairly similar. But any company could say, I want it graphically rich or less graphically rich. And the design team in Office has actually got a lot of contributions here, but we're working to translate that into, can code really do this? So another area where we could really use some innovation. So some examples of types of output that a folio would hopefully create. So those last things I talked about are kind of an Office-wide view of 21st century output. Office Art's at the foundation of a lot of that. Now I'm going to really drill into what our team's going to try to implement in this release. So we do provide graphics infrastructure for the main applications, Word, PowerPoint, Excel. So we have this opportunity to provide editing consistency, to really have consistent editing across the apps. Right now, it almost is, but the draw tools are the same, but the text editing isn't. We want to bring intelligent styles to all the applications, things that both make the graphics match the document, but also help drive really good looks throughout the document, really bring the quality of the output to a new level. So rendering effects. Today we don't have raster effects. We want to have good raster effects. These are things you might have seen in PhotoDraw, commonly see in Photoshop, glows, bevels, soft shadows, natural line and fill styles, as well as 3D, which becomes especially important for charts and diagrams. We're also building an entirely new architecture for this, which will ease the integration into the applications. Today it's very difficult to integrate Office Art into a new application. Each application provides its own text to the Office Art model, and it complicates things immensely. So we want to make it very simple for an application, an Office application, I should be specific, to adopt Office Art. There are other potential clients. OneNote is looking at hosting Office Art, especially for rendering copied pieces of documents. InfoPath wants parts of it, so the ease of integration is important. Consistent user interface just kind of comes magically if we do a good job. Although again, we have some issues around text. We're not sure what to do in Word, where there's Word text and then Office Art text. The anchoring model is really complicated. Each app has their own words. Graphics in Word flow with the text. Graphics in PowerPoint are 2D positioned. We want to simplify that a bit. Application customization. Each application needs to customize things to some extent. So a chart, for example, is going to be built on top of Office Art, but they have their own direct manipulation requirements, their own text requirements. So we have to make that possible. And then, of course, make template and color scheme support work. This is actually a big piece of the work that we're doing. Is we're building a common text engine. We're working together with the Rich Edit team in Office. We're talking to the text folks in Avalon as well to figure out how all these pieces go together. We want a text engine that's capable of meeting all of the text requirements of an application like PowerPoint, which has a lot of international requirements, a lot of backwards compatibility issues, but also provide the types of text that you see here as native text. So you could take titles and give them graphic effects, edit them in line, those types of things. And then finally, we have some imaging improvements. Probably not a lot, but some basic imaging improvements around handling of digital images, photos and such. So a little picture of the architecture. We have a gel rendering engine today. That's the piece, and actually that's going to sit right on top of Mill and Avalon, and just render all the cool effects that we're going to do. The GVL is really the integration. It's the graphics view layer. It's the integration into the applications, and then the apps sit on top of that. Still a bunch of hard problems to figure out with our architecture. So here's some example of fills that we're after. Some Canadian pride. I got a lot of Canadians on my team. New UI as well. I'm not actually too fond of this UI, but new user interface is a big part of the challenge, as well as great effects. Some line styles, photo brushes, soft edges, natural line styles. These are all things we'd like to get into the product. Again, that's like an old school UI, so I'm hoping for something better. More great effects, 3D effects start to show up both on shapes and then become really important. We'll see in a minute for structured drawings. Here's some imaging effects we see commonly that are not possible in Office today, but we'd like to make these really easy to do. 3D scenes, especially for charting and diagramming. And we're actually planning to have a full 3D model for the chart guys especially. So yeah, text and tables. I like this picture they put together because it has a lot of crazy text effects that we're hoping that we can drive through styles rather than just through manual editing. Here's another kind of thing with text that we see a lot in professional output, but it would be basically impossible or very, very difficult to create in Office today. So we want to unify word art, text, and graphics, have a single story around creating these things, make sure that we can print them, make sure that if you move graphics between applications that it works. Really try to take Photoshop out of the loop of creating Office documents, because we do see Photoshop as the tool today to put graphics into professional Office documents. So some features we're after, all the Longhorn text features, clear type, subpixel alignment, new line services. We're not exactly sure how that's going to fit into things. Improved international support. Actually, PowerPoint's pretty good, but we still have some issues with composite fonts and such. Doing graphic effects in line is actually a big goal, just making sure that there's an integrated rendering model behind text as well as shapes. I mentioned text anchoring before, especially difficult. Well, actually, there's two kinds of text anchoring. One is dealing with graphical text in line, like in Word, because its size and shape can differ, but also just anchoring text to like a picture. Today in Office Art, you can put it in the middle, but you can't have captions and headings around graphics. Word art things, wrap to and stretch to polygons. Kerning is a big request for PowerPoint. So all these things, we just want to build an engine that gets this stuff once and for all. The hope is that it'd be the text engine for PowerPoint, for Chart, for IGX. We're talking about Publisher. Publisher has a bunch of crazy requirements, but we're hoping to satisfy them. Word still just got to have the Word text engine. There's no way we're going to take that one over. So as we do this, and as we looked into text, tables are just huge. Tables are everywhere, and tables are really, really ugly in Office. So we tried to get away from doing tables. They're actually kind of hard. But there was just no avoiding it. So we're going to do a table tool. It's going to be part of Office Art, meaning, again, Office Art clients can have rich table support. And we want to do a good style model for the tables. This effort is actually being handled by the Visio guys in conjunction with our team, but they have a small team of developers working on tables. Again, built on Office Art. I mentioned we have to reconcile these with the existing tables because each app has one. Each app has their own different UIs, different storage models around them, different capabilities. So it's just a really hard problem. Here's some text anchoring with captions in different places. Here's some different text effects that we've seen and want to be able to support. And also, we'd like to be able to support many of these without a lot of direct manipulation, but as styles or some easy model for doing these kinds of effects. Wrapping text around polygon, great for Publisher, but shows up in especially Word and even PowerPoint. Traditional Office Art features and places we've seen them. It's fun to go run around and collect all these samples. International text, when we went and looked at a bunch of international text, these all ended up looking like detergent boxes, but a bunch of crazy effects that we don't necessarily see elsewhere, like these outlines here around a whole graphic shape are actually something we didn't have any way of doing, and glow effects. Yeah, lots of challenges in the text area. Anything? Yeah, sorry.
Subject, but the only reason you print Arabic and Urdu and Farsi in straight line is the printers with lead can't do any better.
Okay.
At the PowerPoint level, take a look at really, really well done Arabic document. Start with the Saudi flag.
Okay.
And see. Essentially, it's an exercise in differential geometry. You enter a letter from some direction, and you leave it whatever direction it wants you to leave.
Okay.
That's crazy, and nobody knows how to print that. You may know how to draw that.
Okay.
And I don't know whether you make money on that either.
Okay. There is always that question. We do a lot of work for Arabic and other BiDi languages, and we're fairly committed. You know, we have a team, so it's good to look at those again. Printing is a big issue with text, especially. There's we can always convert things to raster and send them to the printer, but PowerPoint especially runs into spool size problems. It's okay if you're Photoshop and you're sending one page to a printer, but if you're PowerPoint, I mean, this presentation is 90 slides, and if we rasterized everything and sent it to a printer, we'd kill it. So we're working with the printing and imaging team in Windows, but there's a lot of unanswered questions there. So UI improvements, I actually don't have any pictures. We had some, but it's just the thinking's all over the board. But I do have some goals. We want to make sure that end users are successful. That's the main goal. A lot more one-step formatting, not drilling through a bunch of dialogues to try to set something. Really, I guess if I had to summarize it, we're hoping that most users get their graphic formatting through galleries of styles. And defining these styles is one of the hardest problems we have. There's a lot of levels that we're looking at in terms of representing objects. Like, can a line be, how do you represent a line color? Can it be 10% darker than the fill? And what does that mean when the fill goes to black? So, and you know, it's just one example. And at the end of the day, can we define a style model that when you apply it to a whole document, it makes the document look great? So there's, I think, some interesting thinking that's going on in this area, but we're far, far from a good solution. My main goal is to make sure we don't prevent ourselves from solving this problem over time by the architecture we build this release. I don't know if we'll get it right now, but I do want to make sure we get a good architecture in place. Let's see, a couple imaging things. We don't do much with imaging in Office today. It's not viewed as an area that, I know there's actually a bunch of interesting research here too. It's not viewed by Office as an area that is very easily monetized. Imaging applications are free or very cheap in most of the world, and Photoshop has the rest of the market, and so we're not really after that market at all. That said, we want to have the basic functionality required by Office users to create Office documents. So we did some work in the last release around managing pictures, doing the picture library in SharePoint and the Picture Manager client that we built in Office. Again, I don't know if we're going to go a whole lot beyond that. Likewise, we have some basic editing. We'd like to do a little bit more, but we won't go super deep in this area. We do like auto features. Auto features are great. This is a great opportunity. Research has given us some of this, and we'd like to see more things that just work. We really love taking people out of the picture. I don't know why. The other thing is any features that help make graphics that would go into documents. So here, removing of backgrounds, cutouts, tinting, features like that, especially driven towards content in Office documents, we're interested in pursuing. I think this is actually, I know that there's a lot of research in this area, and these are areas where it's a little easier for us to get the code and plug it in than code that's really interwoven with the application. Ink is another area that we're doing a lot of work in, and also where research has been helping us a bunch, and it could help more. Some major areas for Office. This is kind of some Office thinking, because our team implements the ink in Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, but we also help drive the whole tablet story for Office. So our team's working on richer annotations. There's a lot of pressure around ink email, which is actually a hard problem. There's some interest in pen and ink for drawing because it seems so natural. And then some user interface improvements as well. So around annotation, this is something that our team started. Today, if you annotate a document in Office 2003, in Word, if you use print layout and you don't edit the document ever again, it's pretty good. But anything else, and all bets are off. If you start typing, the reflow kills your annotations. If you change into a different view, like reading view or web layout, then the annotations may not be associated. So, and the annotations are just, at the end of the day, they're office art shapes. So they're not searchable, they're not extractable. There's no way to store them, retrieve them separately. So we have a lot of work that we want to do in that space. And likewise, we don't support at all using ink as a collaboration tool. It's just not really tied into the reviewing models in the applications today. And Word, PowerPoint, and Excel all have their own reviewing models, so that makes it even harder. Yeah, finally, can you, well, actually, one of the ideas is, can you actually strike out words and then have an author say, I want to accept that, or do they actually have to go and delete with the other tools? So we want to both understand the annotation scenarios, although I think we've gone a long way towards that, and the real hard part is really trying to implement some of them. Let's see. So here's some examples of what we'd like to do. We've actually got some code running that does some of this. You'll see original text marked up with underlines and highlights. In the reflowed example, it's moved around, but actually the ink was smart enough to know where what it really is and where it's anchored. And then actually, once you understand that, you can actually clean it up and help with people shaking hands and such. Like I said, we've got some prototypes of this kind of working. It'd be great if we could get this into the product. It's a really tough problem. Some reasons why we think we can pull it off. Actually, most of the annotations in documents that we see are identifiable types. At first, we were concerned there are just too many different ways to select a range of text or to connect that text to a comment in the margin. But in fact, people use some pretty consistent approaches to do these types of things with a pen. So there's some hope we could get pretty close. PowerPoint and Excel are maybe even, I don't know if they're tougher. They're just different than Word. But what does it mean if you delete if you have an object in PowerPoint circled and you delete it? Do we really understand that? Excel filtering. What happens if you filter? Can we move annotations around? And how far can we afford to go? Probably we would focus mostly on Word because that's where most of the customer interest is, and the 2D model works pretty well for PowerPoint and Excel. Ink email. This is a special sore point because Bill very much wants to see us do a good job of annotating ink email. Most of the big problems come today. It's just tedious to write an ink email. First of all, you stumble on the to-line, or because you start writing people's email aliases and they resolve to words. When you actually try to write in an email, the handwriting is usually too big, and there's some little things we could do, like just shrink the end result down a little bit for people. There's no way to annotate further down in a message, and a lot of that gets to what's the rendering engine on the other end. We really don't know. This email is going to go off and it's going to be rendered by something else. Bill G really wants this. People really want to be able to, it's one of the main scenarios for tablets, is to read email and to jot quick replies, and we really don't support it, so we want to try to get this one nailed. Yeah, tablet PC ad light. There was this tablet PC ad that had a great example of email ink annotation in it. We can't do that. I had to send mail back to those guys and say, we can't really do that. There's some talk about converting drawings, ink drawings. So here's, conversion. That was good, wasn't it? We're not really sure how this works or how important it is, but it seems obvious if you can recognize text that you can recognize shapes and drawings. So, people do sketch a lot of drawings. So I guess that's the Office Art slides that I have. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about what PowerPoint's working on in this release. I should point out that the PowerPoint team is not very big. It's about 12 developers right now. We inherit everything from Office Art, so that's a big win. There are about 20 developers, but we're doing all of this with a fairly small team. So for 21st century documents, we get all the Office Art improvements. We're also working on animation and multimedia improvements, core to PowerPoint. and also working on the PowerPoint template model to see how much of this we can expose really easily. Presentation improvements, I'll talk a little bit about multiple monitors and presenter view, something we really think the time has come for, as well as digital meetings, work we've started in remote meetings, and recording presentations that we definitely have to do some work on, and then a bunch about pitch books, which is a core focus for us this release. For animation and multimedia, we have a team, and they're actually in Redmond, that do our animation work. I'm pushing them hard for Flash-like text effects. I don't want to see Flash looking better than PowerPoint anymore. Likewise, transition effects. We have Dissolve. It's left over from 1990. I think we can do better. There's little free apps on the web that do photo slideshows that have better effects than we have now. And then I really want to do animation techniques for better communication, not just for effects. So there's some things you can do to help present information that are very hard to author in PowerPoint today, like having a different bullet point, for each bullet point having a different graphic come up, or having slices of a pie fly out, resolve into finer detail, and then go away again. These are very hard to author in PowerPoint. So we're looking at, can we bring some of those to the front of the application and make it easy for people to author. Improved video and audio support, doing a better job with sound and video across slides. Sound across slides is like one of our #1 requests around creating better presentations. Better performance on video, full screen video, and at the end of the day, the styles and the animations that we have in PowerPoint today are they're just garish. They're not good. I mean, it fits a theme because it goes with our graphics, but we have to do some work there too to make these professional styles. So yeah, I think I've talked about most of this. Oh, also, diagram, chart, table animations. We really want to make sure that if I'm trying to animate a chart, that I've got the right effects to go with it, and potentially have these in templates as well. So a template comes with interesting animation styles, not just for body text and titles, but for charts and tables. I think I even have, look at this, prototype. So, chart here, and I want to build by series. Today I have a little clumsy dialogue, but here I can just click and see what I would get. So there's build by series. Presentation templates, I think I talked a bunch about, so I won't talk too much more now. 2D positioning has come up. Actually, the designers talk a lot about using grids to lay things out, and they're not just a square grid. They're grids that help position objects with correct space and spatially on a page to have good visual appeal. Is there anything we can do to understand 2D graphic layout and help people put objects on pages and slides so that the intention is drawn to the right place and the visual effect is a good one? It's interesting to talk to designers because they can tell you all these concepts, but none of them are built into the tool at all. Presenter view, I have a dream. We have multiple monitors now. I want to be able to walk into a conference room, plug in a laptop, and go into slideshow and have my screen look like this, and the projector just shows slideshow without any other setup at all. And so now I get a richer view of what's going on. I get time information. I had to take my watch off so I could tell what time it was here. I can find the previous slide button. It's, my favorite is a big presentation. Somebody's trying to go back and they're trying everything. People are yelling out, page up. So we have this feature actually today. Nobody can find it. Nobody can use it because of setup issues. You have to have multiple monitors previously configured and drill down in setup show dialog. So our goal is that this just is what happens when you go into slideshow with a projector in the next release. And we're working with the Windows team on getting the APIs so we can drive the separate monitor. Now once we have this, there's a lot of opportunity to put stuff in this place. This presenter view starts looking a lot like live meeting in a hurry. And so integrating this with the live meeting implementation is one of the first things that falls out. There's a bunch of talk about other sort of social interaction that could happen during a presentation, feedbacks, things like that. There's the persistent alert problem with IM and email and things popping up on top of presentations. So now we have another place to send that stuff. And even so, it's not clear you want to see it on your presenter view, but at least that's better than on screen. we've got some really interesting stories about various things that have popped up on people's presentations, but I'll save those.
Does the presenter view allow you to see another slide? So
yeah.
Slide ahead, for instance?
Well, actually, one of the things it does now, and what's really important, is to know what the next build is. So in this particular picture here, you can see the audience only sees one bullet point, but the presenter can see their other bullet points. So you know what to talk about next. You know if the next thing that's coming is the next slide. And, you know, hopefully provide the ability to, well, navigate, but preview other slides as well. So, yeah, that's real important to say, you know, and on my next slide, and click and have the next bullet point. It's a little embarrassing. So we're trying to understand, and we haven't talked much to presenters as part of our planning because we've never had the ability to give them their own tools. We talk to authors. So we're doing right now a round of customer visits to go meet with presenters and find out what their lives are like and what they want to see in a tool like this. But again, it's an area that if there is any information, we'd love to get it. Distribution scenarios. We have Save to CD in this release. People love it. I just got mail from some company that said it's the reason they're upgrading to Office 2003. You know, it only takes one feature for each person, and for somebody it was this. Macintosh did a Save to QuickTime. It's very popular. I really don't understand why, but it is. So we want to make sure we're providing all the right types of distribution that people want. This one animates. So there's somebody saving to a network share. We have a viewer now. We have actually a persistent problem around making a viewer that's going to work all the time. In the next release, we want to use all these Longhorn technologies for rendering, but that makes it very hard to write a viewer that will work on XP. So we've got some issues there. And there's also, we've talked a lot about what does a self-running presentation need that's different than one that has a presenter behind it. If you've ever been mailed a presentation that somebody presented and you weren't there, they leave a lot to desire. They're missing information. If you're clicking through, you really don't want to click through each build necessarily, but if there's a slide with animations, you want to see it. So we're looking at, can we make a reading view for PowerPoint that really makes sense, and what would that look like? Recording presentations is a feature we have today. It's a very poor feature, but it's a great promise. The MSTE folks record presentations, but they don't use our technology. It's very powerful to be able to go back and see a presenter's video with the slides, and also to be able to go through that quickly now because you can speed up audio pretty effectively these days. So we really want to do some work here. The reason our feature isn't good now is we've never had the time or the expertise to do a good job. The live meeting team has record today. So again, we're hoping we can do one effort together with live meeting to do a great job recording presentations as well as entire live meetings. So that's definitely a place that we could use some help. Pitch books is a big focus for us. What these pitch books are, if you haven't seen them, especially the financial institutions, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, they've built these huge automated programs on top of PowerPoint that create PowerPoint documents. They're not presentations. They're never meant to be viewed on screen. They assemble them from existing content and they send them out to customers. The Department of Defense uses them for, well, everything from pitching the recent war to all of their battle plans and everything are done in PowerPoint. And they have been for a long time. They use PowerPoint because it's very easy to assemble documents from a lot of different places, and they sort of trickle them up the reporting chain. So these documents, frequently targeted for print, may never be used on screen, often very complex layouts. So a core feature we're going to add is the ability to have custom layouts and much more complex layouts to PowerPoint. Often the font sizes are small, word size, so our UI is not targeted for that. They are often assembled, and we're going to do a lot of work around document assembly. We're using slides and graphics, charts. The creation often involves workflow, different reviewers, different people working on them, sometimes simultaneously. A lot of companies want to enforce design and construction guidelines. They want to create templates that have certain sections locked down, other sections that can only be edited in certain ways. Authoring by multiple people, I mentioned, and the custom solutions. So People are doing this today with PowerPoint, and they're dependent on it, and they would love innovation here, but we're definitely not doing a lot to support it. So here's some click-throughs of what might work. Here's somebody would build out. We'd provide some functionality, but this is a combination of both PowerPoint and code that a company would build out. But here, somebody's deciding they're going to do a pitch, and they choose which slides are going to go in. So this is going out and fetching from a database slides for this pitch book. Here's some searching for content going on, so looking for any types of content with optical switches in it. Returns results. This is something our team is looking at building, most likely targeted on SharePoint, things stored in SharePoint. It does have some implications around document shredding. We think we can shred graphics and slides both into WinFS as well as into SharePoint and search for them that way. So we're inserting potentially with a link back to the original information, but in this case, just inserting. We've got to be careful about things like, oh, this slide had ink comments or reviewers' comments, so it gives you an option to strip them, and they come. So these are the types of scenarios that customers are doing today. Here's an example we were looking at earlier with shell integration with WinFS. So here I am just in my, in the shell. I search for a diagram, decide what type, what my scope of search is. So I'm looking for office content here. It returns slides as well as diagrams, and I can easily decide that I want to send them off to PowerPoint, and so it brings this stuff into PowerPoint. So that was we were looking at what would happen if we can effectively shred PowerPoint files into WinFS, which we think we can. Last one here, I think, searching within the it says corporate profile tool. So this is a tool to make a tear sheet for a pitch book. Searching for some information, going out to the internet and grabbing some XML information. This is information that it's finding in a certain XML structure, bringing it back into this tool that's been created by the company, and creating a tear sheet programmatically with the most recent information that it got off the web for that particular company. Let's see. Oh, here's a reviewing scenario. My team went crazy creating all these things. And my time passes. So this document got sent out for review, comes back with comments attached to it. There's the potential to add policy to a document, not only at the whole document level, but at an individual object level. So here, he's marking just this tear sheet as internal only. So the presentation, if it gets circulated, only internal people could see that one slide. So a bunch of those scenarios that we're building out, we're looking heavily at XML as a way to represent and store a lot of this profile information, to do the assembly, to do the shredding. PowerPoint is Word and Excel have an XML file format, kind of. Word more so than Excel. PowerPoint doesn't have one at all, so we're definitely adding one. It's a big customer request, and we're thinking hard about what architecture should this file format have to really take us forward for the next, as far forward as we can think. Designing a file format, I've been around for a couple designs of the PowerPoint file format, and it's a really hard problem to foresee what we're going to try to solve in the future. We did a new file format in '97, and we even foresaw that we were going to have multiple masters, but we couldn't get them into the product for 3 releases because we had to wait for the original version of Office 97 to be out of circulation before we fixed it in SP1, the problems around multiple masters. And we had to wait for that version of PowerPoint to go away before we could actually add this feature that the file format supported. We had like 1 bug in the original release. So we want to think, and again, if there's any research on this about how to build file formats that are infinitely extensible, then we'd love them. Turns out the simplest thing we did worked the best, which was by accident we added the ability to add a binary blob to every shape and every slide and every document in PowerPoint. We didn't do text. And that binary blob would be round-tripped by previous versions. That's simple. We had much more complicated mechanisms for extensibility, but the simplest thing is the one that worked the best over time. that said, it's kind of it only works when the structure of the document stays the same. So we didn't have any model for text, and we've kind of bumped up against that limit. Interestingly, Word and Excel do a bunch of crazy things using OfficeArt's ability to round trip those blobs. So they do a bunch of like Word-only constructs in an invisible OfficeArt shape because it's the best way to round trip information for them. So as we do this XML, we want to get support for all this future stuff. We have some problems with XML around size and perf. It's especially a problem for Excel. They have these spreadsheets that are max size, 64,000 rows by 256 columns, and they suddenly become 80 gigabytes. So just the load time, they're taking 5 minutes to load and 40 minutes to recalc, and they can't afford to have it get any slower. So XML kind of implies a larger size. They've got some problems. We have some container problems. We really want to have multiple XML files, like for PowerPoint, multiple XML files with GIFs and JPEGs as separate files. How do you put those into a container that's publicly acceptable as an open file format? Doc files probably isn't the answer. Zip has its own issues that we don't want to live with. So we've got some container issues. And how do you open these things in old versions of Office is always a problem. So as I went through this, I think I mentioned most of these, but there are some problems that we could use a lot of help with. I mentioned some here, but I think I mentioned more along the way. Color and style models is really interesting. There's a lot of hope, but I haven't actually seen anything from my team that makes me confident that we're going to do a great job here. But I'd love any ideas people have, as well as 2D positioning and transformation issues. Imaging improvements we're already getting help with, so that's always more the merrier. We like those again because they're fairly encapsulated, can be fairly encapsulated. Ink recognition and anchoring, again, another problem I know that research is working heavily on and we're getting help with. But it's not just text, drawing and diagrams. And again, making this stuff affordable for us to get into the release is important. Remote presentations and presentation recording. This is something research has been involved with, and I've been working with research for many years on. Anoop has now got his own group to go and do this, which is great. We still could use more help there. And then anything around XML, and there may be things that we're not even thinking of that would benefit us. So, and anything else, like if you saw anything in there that rings a bell, by all means, let me know. And that's all I have. Any questions? Yeah. Well, we want to be able to, so today we have color schemes, and they're very fixed and rigid in PowerPoint and Excel, and Word doesn't have color schemes. So in PowerPoint there's 8 slots, there's title and background and fill. What we want to be able to do is make colors look great in a document. And sometimes, some of the ideas are, hey, a company has a corporate color scheme. They often do. How can we reflect those and show them in the user interface in the right places, make sure that complementary colors go together and you don't get situations where text disappears on the shape because, like in PowerPoint, it's pretty easy to get text to disappear on a shape when you turn it into a hyperlink and it takes on the hyperlink color. So it's both getting the authoring right the first time, but also when templates are created and applied that they have good uses of color throughout the document. There's so much theory that like an artist would learn, but none of it's boiled into the application at all. You get the color wheel with all the colors. There's nothing to say these colors would be better than those colors. So, and for styles, it's a much harder problem, which is, what graphic effects go, it kind of compounds, what graphic effects go well with other graphic effects. And there's, again, these are things that graphic designers and artists learn about in years of schooling, but we don't put into the applications at all. So that's mostly what I'm after. Yeah?
So can you give us a few problems you are facing with remote presentation and presentation recording?
Problems in remote presentations and presentation recording. remote presentations has, I mean, one of the reasons our team struggled at this is it had this whole server component that we just didn't have any expertise in, and Office didn't have any expertise in, and we didn't have a product for it. So that's changed. We have SharePoint, which is a server product, although it's not a streaming server. And then we have Live Meeting, which of course is a streaming server. So we're actually trying to let that team solve the problem around streaming and just work with them on it. There are some issues around what to stream. It's nice if you could get the PowerPoint presentation out there and just stream commands, like go to the next slide, rather than try to stream all the bits that are flying up to the screen. We actually, once upon a time, had an implementation of that in PowerPoint. Some of that implies that the PowerPoint file itself is streamable, so if somebody joins late, they don't have to sit there and wait for the whole PowerPoint file to download before they can even start seeing anything. So there's a bunch of issues around streaming to solve. Then around archiving, it's sort of the same thing, like what representation are we going to use for slides as well as the video. And then we get some crazy problems we have today, like when a PowerPoint animation runs, we use all the bandwidth because we think we're on slideshow and we should have a fast animation, but that kills the video encoder. So what's the best model for building? And then, like, Live Meeting has a broader problem because it may not be PowerPoint, so they have to record whatever's going on. And we're prepared to do a better job for PowerPoint than for whatever's going on, but can we build a single model? Do we have a storage architecture where we can write time stream into it, and can we edit that thing later? One of the problems with ASF today is you have to rewrite the whole thing when you edit the stream. So those are the types of problems we're looking at there. And at the end of the day, is it something we can afford to implement this release? It's always looming. And it's not, I talk a lot about this release. So when PowerPoint did the big re-architecture, PowerPoint 4 to 95, they actually splintered off a small group of developers. At the time I was a developer, so I was one of them. And we worked for 2 whole releases on this re-architecture. And it was a great model. I wish Office did more of it, because we can do so much if we're not trying to ship and stop coding in 12 months. We got to code for 3 years straight and then ship in the next cycle. So if there's a lot of promise, then it'd be great to look at ways that we could splinter off some of the development effort. And I could try to make it happen in my team and say we're working on the next release after the current one for some of these harder problems. Well, thanks everybody for coming. And if you think of anything, send it to me, Brendan B. And Dean knows how to get a hold of me anyways. So thanks a lot.